나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Okay, looks like we're going. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi. I hope you're feeling well and you're safe. Just had a back and forth email conversation with a good friend, a member of our Sangha who's been here for quite a while. He's a Canadian living in Vietnam, bit of a world traveler. Anyway, he's seen some differences in Buddhism, certainly from country to country, sect to sect, group to group. And recently something really touched a nerve with him. And he brought something up that, and thank you for that conversation, Brandon. And it's an issue, it's an issue for all of us. And I wanted to talk about it today so that you have some clear idea of what my perspective is, so that you can understand where I'm coming from, at least. Because this is a human behavior. It's not just about Nichiren doctrine or Shakyamuni or Lotus Sutra Buddhism or Buddhism at all. We live in an age, right? Shakyamuni. Greed, anger, foolishness, stupidity. So what is that foolishness? What is that stupidity? Greed, we have a pretty good handle on what that is. We just want. Anger is kind of a ancillary function of the greed, because anger in Buddhism isn't about okay, that's really more like rage. That's from the world of hell. Anger is really about how we treat one another. The world of anger is about manipulation what's the term? Passive aggression. Oh, don't we hate passive aggression? Well, that's a form of manipulation. It's also a bit of a backstabby kind of behavior, or actual backstabbing. Hey, psh, psh, did you know? Da, 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 da. Right? Rumors, gossip. All of that. That's the world of anger. That's the world of positioning, superiority, and undermining others. Right? And our belief system, our way of operating with that in our lives and greed in our lives and constantly being influenced all the time, and then being influenced so much that we end up carrying out that influence. We just become big vessels, portholes of just bleh, just all kinds of propaganda all the time. That's the foolishness. That's the not seeing yourself clearly part. That's the stupidity, right? That when we think about it to ourselves and really can observe our behavior in context, we see that we're not behavioring. Our behavior isn't supportive of our best self. We know it, right? So, when it comes to Nichiren's doctrine and our practice of Buddhism, We have some very clear guidance from Shakyamuni on through all of the scholarship right to Nichiren. First of all, follow the law, not the person. Now let's just think about that for a moment. We live in an age of cults of personality. We are cults of personality. That is so much a part of our politic, our programming, our daily television consumption, our advertising. It is the way we are manipulated, influenced, manipulated, to parrot, to copy, to reach for identifications of a particular sort. And there are plenty of folks who want to be the subject of that identification. Ask yourself what a selfie is. Ask yourself what the entire social media landscape is built upon. How is Mark Zuckerberg, a little programmer, right, so wealthy? Is it because he sells a product? And that product is so great, everyone wants one? He doesn't even have to make a product. All he's done is provided a hole for cults of personality. And somehow he's arisen in our culture to be one of those personalities. It's fascinating. And we could go on down the line. I don't mean to just pick on Facebook, but do you see what I'm saying? And certainly, you must understand, this has always been the case with religions, politicians, words. Words like the demonizing of social welfare, socialism being made a dirty word. It's a word. Please educate yourself on what it actually means. And maybe you'll see with some transparency how people are using those words with their own definitions, read memes, to convince you that the word means something that it does not. Why do I point this out? And I know I'm touching some sensitive hairs. But you know, as Buddhists, we really, when we feel our hairs shackle up or we may not be able to calm ourselves in that moment, but please reflect on that moment and ask yourself, why so touchy? Why? Oh, because take a breath. Because I think it means, because I heard it this way, because maybe could I hear it a different way? Could it mean something else? Maybe you'll discover that a lot of our deepest, strongest reactions to things are the very thing we need to take apart. Now you're thinking like a Buddhist, right? Because we shouldn't be reacting our way through life. If there's a reaction, it's because your attachments are being challenged. That's not always easy to admit. You may hear me say that and think, that's logical, I get that. But do you? In other words, you may, I don't slight your intelligence, you may get that. But are you aware of it when it happens? That's a much more difficult thing. This is, in fact, why we practice daily, to keep ourselves aware. Now, I've said a lot of things on this channel that people have taken exception to, that they have reacted to. And I try, when there's a reasonable opportunity, to redress those communications, even if I have to apologize in order to quell the reaction, so that we can have a more open-minded dialogue. But some things are just what they are, and I'm certainly not afraid to speak it. Like when I say that we don't practice Nichiren Buddhism, because Nichiren didn't invent Buddhism. Nichiren didn't try to invent Buddhism or a form of Buddhism. Nichiren's entire life was spent analyzing Shakyamuni's Buddhism, with special focus on his ultimate teaching of the Lotus Sutra. We practice, if there's a delineation, Lotus Sutra Buddhism. And the only reason we need to make that distinction is because so many other groups and sects and so on have adopted chunks of Shakyamuni's teachings without regarding the entire corpus of his teachings, without respecting his own claimed ultimate teaching, the Lotus. To the point where they say, no, our school of the early teachings are the only real ones. And upon further investigation, we find out that all those Pali language translations aren't the initial teachings of Shakyamuni. There are some other translations, that there are translations in other languages that are prior to these Pali. In fact, some Pali translations come from Chinese. So this arbitrary adoption of this is what he meant and everything else is trash, I mean, that's so egotistical. It's obvious if you back away and you stay objective. And isn't this what Shakyamuni said all along? This is why study is important. Because the more you study, the more you disabuse yourself of these staunch, rigid, organizational imperatives. Because Buddhism is a self-motivated practice. Shakyamuni knew this. He said, study all of it. Because whatever your specific needs are to navigate your mental path to Buddha, they're not greater or less than or other than. They're yours, and they're more valid simply because they're yours. Follow the law, not the persons. It's very consistent throughout, right? Nichiren repeated several times. Nichiren repeated it, especially in his critique of other sects in his day. Now, unfortunately, because what's often taught in several groups and sects and so forth to this day is, look at Nichiren. If somebody didn't agree with him, he ground them to dirt. He was not afraid to, right, shakabuku. I'm going to break you of all your disbeliefs, your errors. And sometimes I'm sure that that's necessary. I'm more a fan of the shoju way, but I think in my character, in the way that I draw lines, it's shakabuku of a sort, isn't it? Certainly when I won't let somebody deter me from what's clearly stated from Shakyamuni to Nichiren, I won't let myself be sucked into personal politics, driven by agendas that the people themselves don't even really understand. If they could just back up and look at the bigger picture, it would become obvious. On the other side of that, we have brilliant people in academic institutions and universities throughout the world with entire universities and research centers set up of many intellectuals, all digging into the history of Buddhism and trying to sort out what is, and there's some merit to sorting out who said what when and what was meant by who said it when they said it. I mean, that's a very honorable pursuit. But is it Buddhism? No, it's academia. It's research. And even in all that intellectual power being applied to these teachings, and Nichiren's certainly, there is profound disagreement. But why wouldn't there be? We're all individuals with our own path, and your path may not look identical to mine. This was my greatest impetus to create this channel. And the more I did videos, because at first I just did them when I wanted, when something was itching at my mind, and I wanted to say something about it. And the more I did that, the more I learned myself that communication is so fallible, that we all have these little minefields in our minds, a certain word set in a certain way about a certain something, boom, and all of a sudden we're reacting to that word, but we're not listening. We're not listening to the meaning. Oh my goodness, Shakyamuni talked about this very thing. Stop focusing on the words. Look at the meaning. And it occurred to me that unless I endeavored to just do video after video after video, at least my aim is to do at least one video that's not just, frivolous, but to really concentrate on the teachings and be in this learning mode along with you every day. Maybe even though some days I might be unconsciously responding to a situation as I'm sharing with you and saying things in a certain way that might trigger some of you. If I do it every day, sooner or later, there's a clarity that's going to come out of it, right? It certainly has functioned that way for me. So thank you for listening. And if I do a video one day and you're not sure what you heard and you're like, man, I don't know, please give me a chance. Keep listening. Or better yet, speak in the comments. Email me. Let me know what's perturbing you. Don't accuse me. Let's not get into that. That's creating walls that take much longer to penetrate, to just get to simple answers. We're all trying to do the same thing. But some people are still learning through cults of personality. And in reading Nichiren's Goshos, sometimes I think many people get the idea that we should be fearless when we're claiming somebody else is wrong. You're wrong. You're not doing it right. Yeah, in many ways, I've done that myself. But I'm hoping that there's a difference here. I'm hoping that you can tell that whenever I call out something as incorrect, that I give you why I pointed out. I give you context. I give you, just as Nichiren did. He didn't just say, oh, those Zen people, you're all wrong, you're idiots, you don't know what you're doing. It may sound like it when you read Nichiren, but if you back up for a moment and you think, Nichiren backed that claim up with fact after fact after fact, quotations from Shakyamuni himself in many sutras and expedient means, stories, demonstrated why he said what he said about these other sects. That is key. You can't just go up to somebody and tell them, you're an idiot, you're wrong, without trying to be a little bit more empathetic and saying, well, have you read this? In the light of this quotation from this sermon, this sutra, how is it you can justify saying what you're saying? Because right now, to me, that sounds like a pretty big contradiction. How do you, right? That's on our practice. On the flip side, if somebody tells you, I don't think that's right, I don't think you're doing that right, or you're wrong, when we hear that, and this is what I tell people all the time, learn to condition yourself to laugh, to right away deflect that inner emotional fire. And when somebody says something, whatever it is, and you feel that that immediate, you know what I'm talking about, right? Immediately see that coming, welling up in you, and go, just let it burst out as laughter. We don't need that. It's in the way. Okay. Why do you say that? Now right away you can broach to dialogue. And what you'll learn, and you will learn something, is usually where this accusatory tone is coming from is in uncertainty. People react with strong accusations because driving them is a fear that they might be wrong, that you might be right. They may not see it that way in that moment, but they have a lack of understanding, and they're just parroting a belief system that's been rhetoric, propaganda. And so have some compassion. I know it seems contradictory, but if somebody calls you out, you're saying controversial stuff. Well, what about what I'm saying is controversial? Well, you say this, and then you'll hear them. They'll either identify something and give you an opportunity to kind of talk through it, or they'll probably blush because they'll figure out for themselves they're not really sure why they're saying that. They just feel that way. This is the life we're in this age of Mappo. There's a tremendous amount of confusion and misleading rhetoric. We have to figure out a way to, first of all, when I say in each video, be kind to yourself, I'm talking about this very thing. When you feel that coming up inside of you, that's not being kind to yourself. Forget your interlocutor. That's not being good to you. You're creating a tremendous amount of pain and controversy in yourself. And now your brain is racing to catch up and how it can spit that fire out. So if you laugh it away, that dragon that's coming up in your throat and your mind turns into cranes, beautiful birds. Let it dissipate. Even if to the point of forgetting what the heck you even got mad about. I don't care. Just get rid of it right away. Be kind to yourself. Let yourself be in the moment instead of driven by fire. Yeah? I mean, that alone, that's the lesson for today. Right? It's not easy, but you can teach yourself to do it. I don't mean laughter as ridicule. You see what I'm saying? I mean laughter as a strong disintegration of that welling up, that arising of all that pus, anger, fuel. Because especially in all of the different schools and corners of Nichiren, there's this idea that the embattler, the reformer, the stand up and to anyone or any authority to the point of being beheaded. I have justification for calling you wrong. But that's not Nichiren. That's the impression we get from organizations and groups that are into the cult of self, the cult of personality, because that's what they want to be. They want to be the end-all, be-all answer. Well, I don't follow you. I don't follow your sect. I follow Nichiren. And Nichiren teaches me how to practice Shakyamuni's Buddhism excellently, perfectly, for my life. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Right? We follow Nichiren's example not by getting beheaded or being sent to a remote island. We follow Nichiren's Ichinen, Nichiren's dedication to the teachings, the truth, no deviation, no my Buddhism. It's my Buddha, my path to Buddha. It's my Bodhisattva mission. And how do I do that? I look at Nichiren's example. I know that as Nichiren, if you really study and you say you're a Nichiren Buddhist, and I don't mean any one of you specifically, I'm just saying, in general, somebody calling themselves a follower of Nichiren should know what the hell Nichiren was teaching. He wasn't teaching get in everybody's face. He was teaching know what you're saying. Because if you follow the law and not the person, if you follow the teachings of Buddhism, Shakyamuni's Buddhism in the Lotus Sutra, look here. See what he says here? This is why what you're doing doesn't fall in line with Buddhism. Do you see here where he says this? It makes it obvious. You're inculcating other stuff that isn't here, does not belong. You must change your ways if you're going to accomplish anything with your practice of Buddhism. If you don't do what Buddhism says, then what you are doing is not Buddhism. This isn't an argument. Right? I mean, how can I make this simple? If you go to the grocery store and you say you want to eat apples and you go and you pick up an orange, no matter how loudly you scream that that's an apple, everyone knows it's a frickin' orange. I mean, right? But if you're going to argue with somebody saying, I'm eating an apple and they're holding an orange, at least take the time to go pick up an apple and say, what is this then? Provide some path to truth if you're going to argue with somebody. You see what I'm saying? All right. I think that's enough babbling on that subject. I just felt I had to address it because you know what? You and I and everyone we know deals with this pressure every day. So rather than adding to it, let's dissolve it. Let's create a path to truth in the midst of that. Remember to laugh, okay? With all my respect and love. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Keep your practice strong. Be kind to yourself and others. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.